Today, we're going to talk about local SEO, optimizing Google Maps, and how to optimize Yelp, specifically both of those platforms, because those are the ones that drive the most traffic nowadays. And I want to focus on helping you get the most traffic to your business. So I want to start off today why local is important. And local is important for multiple reasons, but whenever you search in Google, anytime you're searching in Google Maps, if you're searching for a local business, maps will always appear at the top. So Google kind of gives preference to the maps because Google owns Google Maps and they want you to stick with their properties and stay on Google longer, click on ads. So Google's always going to show themselves first. They're always going to be at the top. So having a presence on Google Maps is going to ensure that you're always at the top of the search results. When somebody's searching for your product or service or your company name, you're going to show up above the websites that are listed on Google, which is invaluable real estate if you could be up there. So that's a great place to be. And Google personalizes the results when you search in Google. So when we're searching in Google, if we all search right now for the same exact keywords, let's say we're searching for a dentist. I'm in Los Angeles. Google's going to show me dentists in Los Angeles. If you're in Arizona or Phoenix, Arizona, Google's going to show you dentists in Phoenix, Arizona, because they want you to find someone that's close. They try to keep it about maybe like a 15-mile radius, because let's say I'm in Los Angeles and I search for a dentist and Palm Springs shows up. That's a little too far for me. So Google wants to keep it to about 15-mile radius proximity of wherever your geolocation is. They're going to show businesses related to or in that area. And what all this equates to is free traffic. So getting on Google Maps is going to give you free traffic to your website. More specifically, not any traffic, but targeted traffic, because that's what we want. We want to get targeted traffic of people that are showing interest, showing intent in wanting to use your products or services or whatever it may be that you're promoting. And this is going to overall increase your conversions, whatever your conversion goal is. Every website has a goal, whether it's to get phone calls, emails, get people to come into the physical location. Maybe you're selling physical products, or you have an e-commerce website and you want to get sales online. But overall, that's all going to tie into that and lead to more conversions. And local SEO is mainly for local businesses, but it doesn't always have to be local businesses, which I'll show you. There's ways to hide your address. Like for myself, I'm an SEO company. I'm in Los Angeles. I want to rank for SEO company in Los Angeles, but I also want to rank for SEO company in other locations. So I want to focus on my geolocation, Los Angeles, but I also want to show up for other areas. So I'm more of a service-based business. I don't have a physical location, but I do service a general area, which I'll touch on in a minute. There's ways to hide your address, keep everything private. So if you work from home and you don't want your actual address shown on Google, you could hide all that information and you don't have to worry about people coming and knocking on your door asking for help with whatever it may be that your website or that you're promoting on Google My Business. And with local SEO, it really does come down to Google and Yelp. So I want to talk about Google Maps first, because Google Maps is the one that gets the most traffic. It's owned by Google. Google's always going to show it at the top and promote it as much as possible. They want to get as many people using Google Maps because Google is competing with Yelp. Yelp is a big competitor of Google. So Yelp usually shows up when you search on Google under the website area, but the maps are always above Yelp. Google always tries to push himself above Yelp to try to push Yelp down and gain some of that market share that Yelp has acquired over the years. But Google Maps is the one that I would really focus on primarily. And then from there, go on to Yelp. And then there's, hundreds of other local map directories that we could talk about being on, like Apple Maps and Bing Maps. But really, in terms of driving traffic, when I'm looking at my own business and clients I've worked with for the past 13 years of me doing digital marketing, looking at probably hundreds, maybe thousands of different businesses, Google Maps is going to bring in the majority of the traffic, and Yelp. Those two platforms are going to bring the majority of the traffic when it comes to local rankings. Of course, there's other traffic sources that will work for like social media and email marketing, but primarily it's going to be Google Maps and Yelp that's going to bring the most traffic. That's why I want to talk about these today, because I want you to get the most traffic possible and focus on the more important aspects of digital marketing. And then later on, once you have more time and have these rankings, you go after the lower hanging fruit and go after other ones. But right now, let's go after the more important ones, which Google Maps. The way to get into Google Maps, it's free. So anyone that gets, there's been a lot of spam phone calls over the past year or two that I receive a lot, and that a lot of my clients receive, saying to get in Google Maps, sign up today, give us your credit card, and we'll make sure that your listing is accurate in Google Maps. But it's free to sign up for Google My Business. It does not cost anything. So be wary of these phone calls. If you are a business owner, there's a lot of people that are going to try to call you and try to trick you into thinking that they work with Google and they're a representative of Google when they are not. And because again, Google Maps is a free service. So you go sign up at Google My Business. So anyone that doesn't have an account, it's free. Go to Google My Business, sign up. They're going to ask you to put your information in, like what is your business name, your address, your phone number. Again, you have to put your net address in initially, but you could hide the address. So Google wants to make sure you do have a physical location. It does not matter if it's your house. That's perfectly fine with Google. So don't worry if you have a house or if you're in an apartment or a condo or whatever you're in. As long as you have a physical location, you could use that to get verified. And then once you're verified on Google My Business, so what they're going to do is after you sign up, create an account, they're going to email or they're going to mail you a postcard. I'm not going to email you a postcard. That would not work too well, but they're going to mail you a physical postcard to actually make sure that you do have a location at that address that you input in there. And again, it's okay to use your house. You can make that private after you sign up and get verified. But initially, Google wants to verify to make sure you do have a physical location. There were ways to trick this, and a lot of people try to trick Google nowadays by using like P.O. boxes if you don't want to have a physical location. But Google kind of figured that out a few years ago, and the P.O. boxes don't work as efficiently as they used to work. Again, Google's only going to really show you for a 15-mile radius. So if you're in Miami, 15 miles out of Miami, Google's going to really lose relevancy, saying we don't want to show you to other people, because especially like if you're like a carpet cleaning business, no one's going to travel 30 miles, 40 miles to use your services. I mean, they might occasionally, but in general, you want someone in close proximity to you. So the closer you are to that physical location when searching in Google, the more likely you are to show up for that result. And then when you sign up for Google My Business, you want to make sure you fill that out completely. Make sure you don't leave anything empty. You want to fill that out 100% full of information. In there, it's going to say, write a description about your business. If you write, and it might say, I forget the exact numbers, but it probably says about 500 words or 500 characters. And if you only write, let's say 300 characters, but Google's giving you 500 characters of space to write about your business, you want to make sure you utilize all 500 characters. You want to use as much space as possible to fill out about what your business is, because this all comes down to SEO. SEO is search engine optimization, which is optimizing your website to show in the search results, mainly in Google search results, because Google brings the most traffic. The way you optimize your website is you have to add content to your website. Google is just a robot. It's just an algorithm. Same with Google Maps. They're just an algorithm, and you need to really spoon feed Google and give Google as much information as possible about your business. The more information you give to Google, the more they're going to be able to understand what your business is about. But Google cannot read images and they cannot read videos. They're getting better at it, but they're not there yet. So if you just have images on Google My Business, or if you have videos but no content, Google's not going to be able to understand what your business is about. This also holds true to SEO with your website. When you're optimizing your website, if you just have a bunch of images on there, Google's not going to know what your website's about. You need content. Content. The more content, the better. So do not hold back with the content. Fill out that information as much as possible on Google My Business, just like on a website with SEO. But for now, we want to take those same tactics that we'd optimize your website with, and now use those to optimize your Google map listing, because Google's algorithm is pretty similar on these two aspects. So when you're going in Google My Business, make sure you fill that out completely. As much, the more information you put in there, the more Google's going to understand what your business is about. Make sure you list out all the services. Make sure any service that you want to rank for, you have to put there, because if it's not there, Google's not going to know that you offer that service just because you have it listed on your website or you know that you offer it. But if you don't have it in writing, Google's going to have a tough time really knowing that you offer that service. And then if people are searching for your services and Google doesn't know if you are really offering that service, if they're kind of questioning it, they're not going to want to show you at the top of Google. They're going to want to show someone that they know this person actually does what they have listed on their site. So make sure you fill that out completely. The more information, the better. And in these business details, this is where you can start sprinkling your keywords in there, listing out different locations or different cities that you service, different services that you offer. Like for myself, I'm an SEO company. I could say I do SEO, I do Google Map SEO, I can help with keyword research, I could help out with link building, I could help out with a lot of different aspects of SEO. So if I just put in Google that I do SEO, Google's not going to know I do all these other services. So it's really important to give Google as much information as possible. Don't hold back. Don't think you're putting too much information in there. Most people, they're not going to read this information section about your business. I mean, most people never even see this. This is really for Google, the algorithm, to give to Google, for them to better understand what your page is about and for you to start getting more targeted traffic, since Google now knows what services that you offer. And once you fill out all that information out, again, make sure you fill it out till it's 100% complete. Then you want to start working on getting reviews from other people. So having clients write reviews is going to be beneficial. I mean, people trust reviews. If your website has 0 reviews, people are going to be like, I'm not sure if I really want to use you yet. You might be a new company. Why don't you have any reviews? So you want to make sure you have some reviews. You can reach out to old clients and ask them if they want to write a review, or if you're working with a client currently and you know they're really happy with your product or your services, you can reach out to them and ask them for reviews, because most people, it's tough to get reviews. People aren't really going to want to write reviews. People are going to write reviews if they're not happy about your products or services. They don't really write them too often when they're happy about your products or services. So you have to kind of ask or give them a little nudge saying, hey, here's my Google map. Do you mind? Can you write a review? And Google Maps says it's okay to ask for reviews. Yelp, which we'll talk about in a minute, they don't like you doing that. So, but with Google My Business, they don't mind you asking for reviews. So getting reviews is going to be beneficial. Try to get reviews. The more, the better, especially it comes down to this. The more reviews you have, I would look at your competitors. If your competitors have 20 reviews, if you have 25 reviews, that's going to look a lot better than your competitors that has 20 reviews. Reviews are not a means to an end. So don't think reviews are going to get you ranked at the top of Google. They're not going to rank you at the top of Google. Reviews help out a little bit, but they are not what really pushes you up to the top of Google Maps. There's a couple other variables that I'll talk about in a second, but reviews are important for people. When people are searching on Google Maps and they see your website, and if they see that you have a 2-star review or you have 20 reviews, but it only averages it out to 1 star, people are not going to want to trust you. So for people coming and looking at your profile, they want to see reviews. That helps build trust. For Google's algorithm, it's just one piece of the puzzle. Just like with SEO, I always tell people when it comes down to all these tactics or techniques I'm talking about, it's like a puzzle. Well, I'll put all the pieces together, but some pieces are a lot bigger than others. And reviews are an important piece, but they're not the most important. There's a lot of other variables, such as completing all your business information. That is probably the most important thing, is make sure you fill out that profile till it's 100% complete. Do not hold back on that. Fill it out till you can't add any more content. I can't stress that enough. And then also, like Google Maps, people could ask questions, so you can respond to questions. This is a way to get more content on your page. Again, content. The more content, the better. So if people ask questions, you can respond to those questions. That's going to add more content to your Google Map listing, and that's going to help you rank higher. And also it builds trust. People are asking questions and you provide the answers. Then you could actually provide them a good quality answer that's going to help benefit that user and potentially help out other people that might have that similar question. So definitely try to make it as easy as possible, respond to all that information. And then a couple other more tactics real quickly is create business citations. So this is a really important thing. So Google knows that you could just go and Google my business, fill out in all that information, put all these details in there. Google's going to be like, great, we see that you're, let's say, a dentist in Santa Monica. Awesome. We think you're a dentist, but we don't fully trust you because a lot of people create these listings on Google Maps and they are not who they say they are. So what Google wants to see is citations. Essentially, what these are your business name, address, and phone number. It's called NAP, N-A-P, name, address, and phone number citations. So the more places your business name, address, and phone number is listed on the internet, the more trust Google is going to have that you are actually who you say you are. Because again, Google does not fully trust what you put out there. So you need to get other websites to talk about you, which is kind of like link building for SEO for your website. For Google Maps, you don't need to build backlinks necessarily. You need to build citations, name, address, and phone number citations. One thing though, one caveat is it has to be consistent. This is really important. Is the business name, address, and phone number need to be 100% consistent on the internet, because if your address is listed in Santa Monica on, let's say, Apple Maps, but then on yellowpages.com you're listed in San Diego, Google's going to be confused. They're not going to know which location. Maybe you were in San Diego and you moved to Santa Monica. You need to make sure you change the old locations to ensure they have accurate information, because again, Google is just an algorithm. It's just a robot. And if they see multiple addresses, they're not going to know which one to display. They need you to, again, spoon feed Google and give them as much information as possible. The more information you give to Google, the more they're going to be able to process that and be able to better trust you. So make sure it's consistent. If you change phone numbers, you have to change the phone number. This is a little annoying and a big headache about digital marketing or about local SEO is if you change your address, you have to go into all these different places that your business is listed and make sure it's accurate. So what you want to do is when you're creating these citations, there's a few ways to create these citations. You might be wondering, like, Brandon, how do I create these citations? How do I get websites to list me? Well, the best way to start off is let's look at your competitors and see what they've done, because if they're on the first page of Google Maps, if they're ranked in those first positions, they're doing something right. And we could look at their strategies with SEO and digital marketing. Everything is really transparent if you know how to look for it. So what we're going to want to do is let's take Google and use Google to help us out. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at your competitors. So what I would do is search in Google. Let's say you're a dentist in Santa Monica. Search in Google, dentist in Santa Monica, and then look at who's on the Google Maps. Whoever's on Google Maps, they're doing something right, because this is where you want to be. You want to be on Google Maps as well. So what we're going to do is look at their phone number. Whoever's on that the first position, we could take their phone number and search in Google their phone number, and we're going to see everywhere they are listed on the internet. So, because again, we're going to look at their citations, their name, address, and phone number citations. If you just Google their phone number, you're going to see all the websites that they are listed on. And then one by one, you could start reaching out and building listings on these websites. What you're going to see is they're probably listed on like Bing Maps and Apple Maps and yellowpages.com and MapQuest and all these other local maps. I mean, there's so many of them out there. There's hundreds, thousands of these local maps out there. So you want to get in these local maps, and you can just search on Google for local map listings, and you'll see there's thousands of them. The more you're in, the higher it's going to rank in Google. So what you're going to want to do is try to find local maps and directories that are relevant to your industry. Like, let's say I'm in Los Angeles. I could find a chamber of commerce in Los Angeles, and they could list me my business name, my address, and phone number in the chamber of commerce. And that's a name, address, and phone number citation. So what you want to do is try to get into all these different places on the internet and make sure that you have your business name, address, and phone number listed on them, and making sure that it's accurate and consistent, especially like business hours as well. That stuff is also really important. Like if Google sees that your hours on Yelp are different than Google Maps, Google's not going to know which one to display. So consistency, consistency, consistency. But when it comes down to what Google really is looking for, Google Maps, they're looking for their name, address, and phone number. So those three details need to be listed online consistently. Another way to get listed your business name, address, and phone number is with the press release. Anytime you write a press release, you're at the very bottom of the press release, it's going to say, what is your business name, address, and phone number? Another place to get your business listed. So a press release is a great way to really build more citations. You could use different services like PR Web is a great site to submit your press release. And there's a lot of different tactics and techniques to get in there, but you just want to make sure that you get into get those local name, address, phone number citations listed in there. And when you are in Google Maps, I should have said this a little earlier, if you want to make sure you hide your listing, once you sign up for Google My Business, it's going to ask you, are you a service-based business? Meaning, do you service people at their physical locations? That's where, if you're trying to hide your address, you just check that little box and Google is going to hide your address. So your address is not going to be shown anywhere on the internet or on Google Maps. So as long as you just check that off when you're signing up, you'll be fine and you don't have to worry about your address being listed. And then when you're building these name, address, and phone number citations, you don't really need to build your address. Your address is going to be hidden, but your city will be there. So your city and state will be shown, but your physical address will not be displayed. So you still want to have your address like Los Angeles, California, but you will hide the actual number of your home in your unit, so people don't come knocking on your door saying, hey, I'm coming here to use your SEO services. Make sure you hide that stuff. And so here you can see, like for myself, my company is called SEO Optimizers. So if you type in SEO company Los Angeles, I was able to get myself to number 2. Again, there's a lot of competition for SEO companies trying to rank in Google Maps. And I just wanted to put this up here to show you that reviews are just one aspect of the algorithm. You can see the first listing has 2 reviews. My website has 41 reviews. You would think that 41 reviews, I would be ranked higher than this other company, but reviews are just a tiny piece of this algorithm. I recently changed locations, so that's why I'm not number 1 yet, is I have to go in to all the old locations I was in, or all these old listings I have, and make sure it's now updated with my new information. And as you'll find out, you'll see that there's a lot of websites that are going to list you, and it's a lot of cleaning up and maintenance that needs to be done. And a quick way to see where you're listed on is search in Google for your phone number, and you can see all the websites that list you out. Or you could search for your address or your company name, but phone numbers work really well to see where am I listed. And then you can see if it's accurate, if it's incorrect, because a lot of websites will just take information and throw it up there without even knowing. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but I'm sure everyone has lots of listings that they did not create, that Google or that these other websites just create for them. And with Yelp, though, talk about Yelp. Yelp is a lot more straightforward. There's not as technical. There's not much you could really do with Yelp to optimize it. But I'll show you how I've become, when you type into Yelp for SEO company Los Angeles, I was number 1. I keep searching off number 1 and number 2 on Yelp. But before I implemented the tactics I'll talk about right now, I was on page 6 or 7. I forgot where I was, but I was pretty far down there. Then I made a couple quick changes, and I shot up the rankings. And now I was number 1. Now I kind of switch off every couple of days between number 1 and 2 with this other company, but I'm up there without ever having to spend money on ads. So if you do work with Yelp, or I mean, if you have a listing on Yelp, I'm sure you're getting these phone calls every single week from representatives from Yelp that are trying to sell you on ads, and you could get up there on Yelp without having to spend money on ads, which I will show you how I've done it for myself. And so Yelp, just some quick stats before I even show you that, is Yelp usually ranks at the top of Google. So when you're searching on Google for like dentist in Santa Monica, Google Maps will show up at the top, but then right below it, all these websites appear. Yelp is always at the top. So Yelp is always at the top, listed as website. So another great place to get traffic. So Yelp is actually one of the top websites in the United States. It's in the top 50 websites that get the most traffic. They actually get 178 million unique visitors monthly. So unique people means that's a lot of unique traffic or visitors, 178 million unique visitors. And a nice stat is 35% of people that search on Yelp for your business will actually go visit your actual website or your physical location. So Yelp drives traffic to your website. Targeted traffic. Again, targeted traffic is what we're going after. So quick things with Yelp. You'll see there's gonna be a lot of overlap with Yelp and Google Maps. but Yelp is a lot easier. So Yelp, just go into Yelp My Business and fill out all the details. So just like with Google Maps, you're going to sign up for an account with Google My Business, or here now you're going to sign up an account with Yelp Business. Fill out all that information. It's going to ask you about me. Make sure you fill that out. If you don't fill that out completely, you're going to be really losing out on valuable real estate to put keywords that Yelp is going to use to show you for when people are searching for your different products or services. So make sure you fill out that about me, about the company, the services. I mean, fill out everything until you can't write any more content. If it says there's 5,000 characters to write about yourself, make sure you use 5,000 characters. Don't use 4,000, because then you're just missing out on extra content you could be putting in there, which is going to show you for more unique keywords. And also make sure that reviews are really important for Yelp. So again, it's not the number of reviews that matters, but reviews do help out. So Google or Yelp wants to see reviews. They're not going to show anyone with 0 reviews. I mean, sometimes they might, but you need to have reviews. So with Yelp, though, you can't really ask people for reviews. If I ask everyone right now to write a review, which I would love everyone to write a review, but if I ask you, that goes against Yelp's terms of service. And what Yelp likes to do is filter out reviews. There's a lot of filtered reviews from people that they think are fake reviews, or if they think that you asked for reviews, they're going to filter those reviews. So you got to make sure they're genuine. Yelp is really strict with the reviews. They're not easy to get reviews up. Google, you could get a review up. They don't check it at all. They're always going to throw the reviews up. But Yelp is pretty stringent on these reviews. They take them pretty seriously. So Yelp is a whole nother level, or a whole nother game bargain in terms of getting reviews. You cannot ask for reviews. You'll get in trouble if you do all that stuff. So be careful with the reviews. Yelp, though, lets you do a lot of things to make your listing pop out. Like you could offer deals. So Yelp has all these deals and incentives. Some of them are paid, some of them are free. I would go for the free ones. If you get people to check in on Yelp, that's also great. If you get people to call you, like search on Yelp and then call you or ask directions, that also helps out. But messaging is a really important thing. So if people message you on Yelp, Yelp shows how fast you respond to messages. So if you get a message on Yelp from a person inquiring about your services and you reply in 3 days, Yelp is going to say on your listing, usually responds in 3 days, which does not look the best. So you want to make sure you respond to messages immediately. The faster you do it, the better. If you respond in 24 hours or less, that's going to be ideal. Ideally, you want to respond as quickly as possible. And ways to help with this is Yelp has an app, and so does Google. So Google My Business has an app, and Yelp has an app, so you can manage everything, maintain it, and just make sure you stay organized and have everything in an easy to read place and on your cell phone and there on the go. And so these are the more important strategies, and this is what's gotten me to the top of Yelp and Google Maps. So there's a lot of other tactics and techniques to go into this, but with 40 minutes, I want to cover as much as possible, or the more important tactics. And these are the more important things where if you do this stuff, you'll see, you'll see that leap instantly happen. So as you can see right here, here's Yelp. When you search for SEO company in Los Angeles, you could see, well, if you search for yourself, you'll see I'm ranked organically number 2. And you can see here's that deal I was offering. And this is a free deal that I'm not paying Yelp anything to show this deal. And now you can see on my listing, it has this little green tag. It pops out. It just enhances my listing. So any ways to enhance your listing is going to be beneficial and just help get more eyeballs on your content. Vince was asking about the UPS or PO boxes, which I kind of talked about. PO boxes, Google doesn't like those anymore. So it used to work in the past, but not so much. So I would avoid the PO boxes, and Google's not going to use those. Kimberly, I never look at Google reviews because there's so few. I always look at Yelp reviews. What is the market share of Google versus Yelp? So I don't trust Google reviews because I've only seen so few on Google. So Google doesn't have as many reviews because Yelp is a lot more popular. People use Yelp a lot more than Google, but Google is trying to get that market share. Again, anytime you search on Google for local business, Google Maps is always going to be at the top because they want to capture that market share that Yelp has. Right now, Yelp has a big market share in the United States. Again, if you're in another country, you might want to utilize like TripAdvisor is a lot bigger. Yelp is not all over the world. It's more US based, but everything holds true if you're trying to optimize for TripAdvisor, hotels.com, Yelp, Google My Business. It all kind of holds true of what they're looking for in terms of adding content to your page, getting reviews. So, but Yelp is a little bit more popular nowadays. Let's see, Linda, can you go back and edit info on Google? Yeah, so you could go into Google Maps or Google My Business and Yelp, and you could make changes to your business name, your product name, your services. You could change everything, so that's not a problem. And Kimberly, if you work from home and you don't want your address, you could hide your address. So you don't have to put your physical address on Google Maps. And when you're building these name, address, and phone number citations, you just list out your city. You don't have to list out your physical address. And it is asking if I sell physical products online, should I be listed on Google Maps? And I would recommend it. It's not going to drive a lot of traffic, but people searching on Google will see your reviews. And that's another way to start trusting your e-commerce products is now they know that you have reviews from Google, and that's going to help build trust. And Rafi, once you add words to your website, page keywords, how do you let Google My Business know? Do you just update your website and let Google crawlers find it? So I guess Rafi's asking about if you add new pages on your website about different service areas that you service. Like for myself, I'm an SEO company in Los Angeles. I might put a page on my website saying I do SEO in Miami. So you create that page, and then you just have to optimize it from an SEO point of view. Hannah, I talk about more about incorporating the press release in relation to maps and Yelp. So the press release only helps out with Google Maps. It does not help out with Yelp. Yelp is really easy to rank at the top with. Google is a lot more sophisticated, a lot trickier. So Google wants to see your business name, address, and phone number listed out on the internet, and the press release is a way to do that, Hannah. And Carol is asking, Linda's question is mine too. Should we list on Google Maps if a company only sells physical products online? Yep. So Dahlia, what is a company to do text marketing? So there's a bunch of them out there. I would just search on Google. Easy texting is one that I've checked out. And Kimberly, if we're in the hospitality type service business, should we get on a directory with them like these two? I'm not sure what you mean, but you definitely want to get directories. I'm not sure what these two are in reference to, but you want to get into local directories. That's going to help out. And Samantha, I have a Google My Business spa service. I feel I need help more with content service info. What do you suggest? It's not just creating the content, but you want to optimize the content, sprinkle keywords in there that people are to be using, other variations, long tail keywords, and just ensure that you take up or show up for as many different keywords as possible. And Rafi, an old business location of mine shows on Google. How do I delete this old business address? So if you want to delete a business address, you just have to report it. So in Google My Business or in that listing, we'll say, do you want to report this business is closed? And you just click on that and it should close it. Kelsey, what about if you are an online provider and want to be listed in a metropolitan area instead of a specific city? Is there anything creative you could do to list yourself elsewhere? So Kelsey, if you're trying to get listed in different locations, you're gonna have to get physical locations in those areas. That's going to help out. Or you can create pages on your website about those specific locations, but it's a lot better to have a physical location. But you can't go on your website and just to create pages saying that I offer services on these different metropolitan areas. And Kimberly, should we get on TripAdvisor too to get listing too if you're on the hospitality service biz? And if your clients are on TripAdvisor, I would join TripAdvisor. I mean, you want to be where your audience is at. You don't need to be everywhere, but you want to be where your audience is at. That's the main thing is if you're trying to be everywhere, you're going to spread yourself too thin, which holds true with social media. Is you don't want to be everywhere with social media. You don't want to be everywhere with your website. You don't want to be everywhere. You want to be where your audience is at. That is where you want to focus on because that's where you're going to get the clients. So being everywhere is nice, but you want to really focus on where your audience is at and put the most time and effort into that. Do appreciate everyone for taking the time out today, and hopefully this was helpful. So thanks everyone. Stay safe and have a great week. Bye.